Hey everybody, this is Chris DeFurio from Keys to the Shop. I hope you're having a great day today. Welcome to another Shift Break episode. I'm really glad that you're here today because we're going to be talking about staff meetings. And depending on what you've experienced over the course of your time in coffee, you've experienced good ones and bad ones. Hopefully the tips today that I give you will contribute to having great staff meetings. Staff meetings are so important for the morale of a company, for kind of gelling everybody together. It's nice to see all the faces of the team together in one room that actually contribute to making this whole thing work. Yeah, there's a lot of magic that happens in these meetings. So let's get started with some of these tips that I think will help you have great staff meetings. So the first one is that you want to make sure that you are conducting a staff meeting that is built on a foundation of regular communication already. Now, a lot of people use staff meetings as a way to sort of dump on the staff or to dump out all the things that they've been thinking about but never talking about. This does not work, okay? It's just like you need to prep the ground first and then plant the seed. You can't just throw it onto hard ground and expect something to grow, okay? This is kind of a parable all of a sudden. But the fact of the matter is that the staff meeting is not a substitute for regular, one-on-one, everyday, present leadership, coaching style conversation about work. It's both affirming of what you see that's positive and helpful in helping people correct things that need to be corrected, coaching them into the direction they need to go. That is how you prep the ground to be able to plant the seed in the staff meeting. Okay, so make sure that you got that component first. This is not an opportunity to just lecture the staff about things that you see wrong, okay? This is an opportunity to build team spirit, to build morale, to clarify policies and issues, answer questions, and energize the people that have been working so hard to make this coffee shop a reality. The next thing is you need to conduct this staff meeting monthly, and it needs to be a short meeting. It does not need to be a 2-hour meeting. Again, because you're already communicating with your staff on a regular basis as part of your culture to talk about the work when you're at work, okay? A la Bruce Tulgan, and It's Okay to Be the Boss. We'll link to that episode we had with him in the show notes here. But you don't need to go through the laundry list of everything in the meeting. You only need to talk about the really important agenda items that impact all the lives of the baristas and the company and some choice questions from the employees. That really only takes an hour, okay? You should really just give yourself an hour for this meeting. For all of your staff to attend a 1-hour meeting is not that hard to arrange. So, and this is a monthly meeting. That might be a bit of a trick. But I find that it is the frequency that makes the most sense, because if you put this hour-long meeting at the end of the month, you can go over all of the highs and the lows and the whatnot from the month that just happened, and then go over what to expect, how to be prepared for, and here are the tools for the things coming up in the month following. So you might say, well, it is August. And of course, this depends on where you are. Let's say it's August and our summer menu is departing. And now our fall menu is upon us. So here's the fall menu preview. Here are the things that we need to be prepared for. Here's a list of answers to questions customers might have about these things. If this sounds like a dream scenario, you're not alone, because not many people do this. And it contributes to a large amount of confusion on the floor for baristas. But can you imagine a cafe that has a regular monthly meeting that is thoroughly informative and also to the point in 1 hour long? It would be like magic for how people feel prepared to do their work in the store. They wouldn't be surprised by initiatives that come out of nowhere, and they would trust that their leadership in the cafe is thinking in terms of how to equip them and how to help them do their jobs better. So this is critical. A 1 hour end of the month meeting to go over the business that happened that month and sort of answer questions, guide people into the next month with tools and resources, preemptive training of the most priority items on your list. So on that note, this is really critical, and this may be one of the best things that you can do for the meeting. I mentioned that there's going to be questions that you need to answer from your employees. If you've conducted a staff meeting where you just open the floor for questions, you know that can be a Pandora's box. Any question people have, especially if they're tired and punchy from too much coffee and they're just kind of, wanting to be funny, it can go off on such a tangent, and it's funny at first and it's fun, but then it gets like, oh my goodness, we haven't really talked about anything really helpful. We've just sort of joked around a lot and brought up frustrations about that milk rinser or a particular customer. And this is not a good staff meeting. It's maybe fun in the moment, but when people leave and they remember what they did at the staff meeting, they're not going to value that meeting as much as a tightly conducted meeting that shows that you value their time. Okay. So the one thing that you can do to really make that meeting efficient and respectful of everybody's time within that hour time frame is to have people email you their questions ahead of time. So 2 weeks before your meeting starts, I would say have people email questions and answer the ones that could be answered individually and bring up in the meeting the ones that you think are thematic or big enough that they should be addressed in a group. And that weeds out a lot of little questions that don't need to take up everybody's time. That, by the way, goes for your concerns too, if you're a manager. Again, you don't want to just go over every little thing. Make sure you're going over the items that are the big, store-wide, everyone needs to hear this, and we really need to get clarity on this items in the staff meeting. Everything else that can be communicated via email or text or Slack channel or whatever, face-to-face 30-second meeting, do it. Do it that way. It's much better. Keep the big stuff for your staff meeting. So keep it short, to the point, and impactful, substantial content-wise. And so this brings up something in relation to valuing people's time that I find is unfortunate in a lot of cafes. And that is, sometimes a cafe will say there's a mandatory staff meeting, but people won't get paid for it. If that's you, please don't do that. That's unethical. It's not going to win you any points. Certainly, it's going to lose you employees. People should be paid for their time. If they're coming in for 20 minutes of latte art training, clock in. Before you do anything, clock in. Make sure. A lot of employees are trained to believe that they just need to volunteer their time in different ways for some reason. And I've had to remind employees, definitely, no, clock in, please. This is time you're spending. Yes, that is in training. No, we're not taking money in from customers, but the time you spend in training and the time you spend in a meeting is it makes the company better. That's the whole point of this. So it's valuable to the company that you're here. You're adding value to the company when you come to a meeting. They should be paid for their time, for that 1 hour of time that they're there. So that's sort of a soapbox right there, I guess. But definitely pay people for their time. And I would also say this for one of the final thoughts in this topic of a staff meeting. Make it fun too. I'm not talking about doing trust falls or whatever. But if there can be food involved, that's cool. You can have, a lot of times there's a potluck that people can do. They bring cookies, bring pies, bring food of some kind. I had a manager at Centergus a while back that introduced the idea of a potluck before the meeting. So if the meeting was at 8:00 at night and the cafe was closing down early to facilitate this meeting, they would come in at 7, put the food in the back, and people would just kind of fellowship together. They would talk and catch up, and that get that social aspect of meeting that's so valuable. And then when 7:00 rolls around, clock in for the actual meeting. And now they're on company time. They're being paid because this is the 1 hour that was allotted for this meeting. But I was always surprised at such a huge turnout for the potluck portion of it. There was very rarely a time when somebody didn't show up for that, because baristas, as they work together, form a bond, and it's really not that fun to be in a meeting together if you can't be together in a more social way. So be creative with that. I mean, if you want to pay people for the whole time, fine, that's great. I really do think you should budget your money so that you could cover the costs, just like you do for training employees and onboarding employees, as a way to ensure the health of your business. In a cafe, it's a dynamic and stressful environment. We need dependable channels of communication that we can rely upon, and having this kind of a regular meeting be a part of that equation is really, really critical. And implementing some of these tips in your staff meeting, I think you're really going to be delivering something valuable to your employees and to the company. And over time, you're really going to see the fruit of this take shape in the way that the staff feel about the company, and ultimately the way the customers feel about the company, because it all boils down to that experience. And caring for your staff is all about providing these channels of communication that empower them and show them that you care about them doing their jobs well, so that we can deliver a great experience as a team. So that's it for today's episode. I hope that it was informative and gave you some tools to really help you conduct a great staff meeting. Stay tuned for next week's episode on Tuesday. We're going to be welcoming the Senior Project Manager for Starbucks Global, Major Cohen. Really honored to have him on the show, and it's such an inspirational dive into his career and the history of Starbucks, kind of as they developed as a company, and his involvement in teaching and being an advocate both for Starbucks and really for baristas. And it's just a fascinating conversation with a fascinating guy. So don't miss that next Tuesday. Also, Keys to the Shop has been nominated for a Sprudgie Award for Best Podcast, and I am so very grateful to all of you who voted during the nomination period. Thank you very much. It's really an honor. If you have the opportunity, if you have a little time to go to the website over at sprudge.com where they're taking the votes. Voting is open now. If you would vote for Keys to the Shop, I'd be so grateful. And I appreciate it. Again, thank you for listening, and I will see you here next week for another edition of Shift Break from Keys to the Shop.